Marcus Johnson pushed his cleaning cart down the long hallway of Sterling Tech Corporation. The wheels made a soft squeaking sound on the shiny marble floor. It was past midnight and the big office building was almost empty. Only the security guards and Marcus were still there. Marcus had been working as a night janitor for 3 years. He cleaned the same offices every night. He wiped the same desks and emptied the same trash cans. The rich business people who worked in these offices during the day never really looked at him. To them, Marcus was invisible. He was just the man who cleaned up their mess. But Marcus was not what he seemed to be. He was 45 years old with gray hair starting to show at his temples. His hands were rough from years of cleaning, but his eyes were kind and smart. What the business people did not know was that Marcus had gone to college. He had studied music therapy and had a master's degree hanging on the wall of his small apartment. Years ago, Marcus had worked with children who had special needs. He helped them heal through music. He loved his job and was good at it. But life had not been kind to Marcus. His wife Sarah had died of cancer 5 years ago. Then his 8-year-old daughter Amy died in a car accident 2 years later. The pain was too much for Marcus to bear. He could not work with children anymore because they reminded him of Amy. Marcus lost his job at the therapy center. He could not pay his bills. He had to sell his house and move to a tiny apartment. The only job he could find was cleaning offices at night. It paid just enough to keep him alive, but barely. Every night, Marcus came to Sterling Tech and cleaned the offices of people who made more money in one day than he made in a year. The Sterling Tech building was huge and fancy. The floors were made of expensive marble that reflected the lights like mirrors. The walls were covered with paintings that cost more than Marcus made in 5 years. Everything in the building showed how rich and successful the company was. Richard Sterling was the CEO of the company. He was one of the richest men in the city. His office was on the top floor and was bigger than Marcus's entire apartment. Richard Sterling had everything money could buy, but Marcus had noticed something sad about the man. He always looked tired and unhappy. Marcus had also noticed Richard Sterling's daughter. Her name was Emma, and she was 16 years old. Emma often came to the office after school and stayed late into the evening. She would sit in her father's office or in the waiting area, doing homework or just staring out the window. Emma was different from other teenagers. She never talked. Marcus had worked in the building for 3 years, and he had never heard Emma speak a single word. She communicated by writing notes or using hand gestures. Marcus knew some sign language from his days working with special needs children, so he understood that Emma was using American Sign Language. The other employees whispered about Emma when they thought no one was listening. They said she had been in a terrible car accident 2 years ago. The accident had killed her mother, and Emma had not spoken since then. The doctors said there was nothing wrong with her voice box or her throat. Emma could speak if she wanted to, but something inside her mind had locked her voice away. Marcus felt sorry for Emma. He watched her sit alone night after night. Her father was always busy with meetings or phone calls. Richard Sterling loved his daughter, but he did not know how to talk to her anymore. The accident had broken something between them. They lived in the same house and came to the same office, but they were like strangers. Emma was a pretty girl with long brown hair and sad green eyes. She always dressed nicely in expensive clothes, but she looked lonely. Marcus could see the pain in her eyes. It was the same pain he felt every day when he thought about Amy. Emma was grieving for her mother just like Marcus grieved for his daughter. Every night, Marcus would see Emma sitting by herself. Sometimes she would have tears in her eyes. Other times she would just stare at nothing, lost in her own thoughts. Marcus wanted to help her, but he was just a janitor. What could he do for the daughter of a billionaire? Marcus knew that money could not fix everything. Richard Sterling had all the money in the world, but he could not bring back his wife or help his daughter speak again. Money could buy fancy offices and expensive cars, but it could not buy healing for a broken heart. As Marcus cleaned the offices each night, he thought about his old job. He remembered how music had helped children who were hurt or scared. Music had a special power to heal people in ways that medicine could not. Marcus still remembered all the techniques he had learned in school. He still remembered how to help people find their voice through song, but those days seemed far away now. Marcus was just a janitor pushing a cleaning cart through empty hallways. No one asked for his help with anything more important than taking out the trash. No one knew about his education or his past life. He was invisible to everyone around him. Sometimes Marcus would hum quietly while he worked. Music was still in his heart, even though he no longer used it to help people. The melodies reminded him of better days when he had purpose and hope. Now he just tried to get through each day without thinking too much about what he had lost. The Sterling Tech building had security cameras everywhere, but Marcus knew all the blind spots. He had learned where he could stop and rest for a few minutes without being watched. Sometimes he would sit in an empty conference room and remember his old life. He would think about Amy and how much she loved to sing. She had such a beautiful voice for such a little girl. Marcus finished cleaning the executive floor and moved his cart toward the elevator. Tomorrow night he would come back and do the same thing all over again. Clean the same offices, empty the same trash cans, and watch the same lonely girl sit by herself in the corner. It was not much of a life, but it was the only life Marcus had left. As he waited for the elevator, Marcus heard a soft sound coming from the conference room. It sounded like someone crying. He looked around and saw that Emma was still there, sitting alone at the big table. Her shoulders were shaking, and Marcus could tell she was upset about something. Marcus hesitated. He was not supposed to bother the employees or their families. His job was to clean and stay invisible, but something about Emma's sadness reminded him so much of his own pain. Maybe tomorrow night, Marcus thought, he would find the courage to reach out to her. Maybe it was time to stop being invisible. The next evening, Marcus arrived at Sterling Tech at his usual time. He punched his time card and gathered his cleaning supplies. The building was quiet except for the soft hum of air conditioning and the distant sound of traffic outside. Marcus had been thinking about Emma all day. He could not forget the sound of her crying alone in that conference room. Marcus started his cleaning routine on the lower floors, but his mind kept wandering to the executive level. He wondered if Emma would be there again tonight. Part of him hoped she would not be, because seeing her sadness made his own heart ache. But another part of him hoped she would be there, because no one should have to cry alone. As Marcus worked his way up through the building, he practiced what he might say to Emma if he got the chance. He remembered some of the sign language he had learned years ago when he worked with special needs children. His hands were rusty, but he thought he could still communicate basic words and phrases. When Marcus reached the executive floor, he immediately looked toward Richard Sterling's office. The lights were on, and he could see Emma sitting at her father's desk. She was not doing homework tonight. Instead, she was holding a picture frame and staring at it with tears rolling down her cheeks. Marcus knew he should just start cleaning and mind his own business. But something deep inside him would not let him walk away. He had spent 3 years being invisible, watching this girl suffer in silence. Maybe it was time to stop hiding and remember who he used to be. Marcus quietly pushed his cart closer to the office. Through the glass walls, he could see that Emma was holding a picture of a beautiful woman with the same green eyes and brown hair. It had to be her mother. Emma was talking to the picture in sign language, having a conversation with someone who could no longer answer back. Marcus took a deep breath and gently knocked on the glass door. Emma looked up, startled. Her eyes were red from crying, and she quickly tried to wipe away her tears. She looked confused about why the janitor was bothering her. Marcus opened the door slowly and stepped inside. He set down his cleaning spray and looked at Emma with kind eyes. Then he raised his hands and began to sign. His movements were slow and careful but clear. "Hello?" Marcus signed. "Are you okay?" Emma's eyes went wide with shock. She stared at Marcus for a long moment, not believing what she had just seen. A janitor was talking to her in sign language. In 3 years, no employee at her father's company had ever tried to communicate with her directly. They all just smiled politely and looked away. Emma hesitated, then slowly signed back. "You know sign language?" "A little," Marcus signed. "I am out of practice, but I remember some." Emma put down the picture frame and turned to face Marcus completely. For the first time in months, someone was actually talking to her like a real person, not just nodding and walking away, but having an actual conversation. "Why are you sad?" Marcus signed. Emma pointed to the picture frame. Marcus could see it clearly now. It showed a woman and a young girl at what looked like a birthday party. They were both smiling and laughing. The woman was obviously Emma's mother, and the girl was Emma from a few years ago before the accident. She was beautiful, Marcus signed. "Like you." Fresh tears started flowing down Emma's cheeks. She picked up a pen and paper from the desk and wrote, "Today would have been her birthday. She would have been 38. Marcus read the note and felt his heart break a little more. He understood exactly what Emma was feeling. The anniversaries were always the hardest days. Birthdays, holidays, the day of the accident. They all brought back the pain like it was brand new. Marcus sat down in the chair across from Emma. He knew he was breaking every rule by sitting in Richard Sterling's office, but he did not care. This girl needed someone to see her pain. I lost someone too, Marcus wrote on the paper. My daughter Amy. She was 8 years old. Emma read the note and looked up at Marcus with surprise. She had never thought about the janitor having his own life and his own losses. To her, he had just been a quiet man who cleaned the offices, but now she could see the sadness in his eyes that matched her own. How? Emma wrote. Car accident, Marcus wrote back. 2 years ago. Just like your mother. Emma stared at the words on the paper. She had never met anyone else who understood exactly what she was going through. Her father loved her, but he dealt with grief differently. He threw himself into work and tried to stay busy. Emma's friends at school tried to be supportive, but they could not really understand what it felt like to lose a parent. But this janitor, this quiet man she had seen cleaning these offices for years, knew exactly how she felt. He had lost a child in the same way she had lost her mother. They were both carrying the same kind of pain. Emma picked up the pen and wrote, "Does it ever stop hurting?" Marcus read her question and thought carefully before answering. He wanted to be honest with her, but he also wanted to give her hope. The sharp pain gets softer, he wrote, but you never stop missing them. You just learn to carry the love instead of just the sadness. Emma nodded slowly. That made sense to her. She would always miss her mother, but maybe someday she could think about her without only feeling pain. What was Amy like? Emma wrote. Marcus smiled for the first time in the conversation. She loved to sing, he wrote. She had the most beautiful voice. She wanted to be a singer when she grew up. Emma's eyes lit up with recognition. She wrote quickly, I used to sing too. Before the accident. You were good at it? Marcus wrote, I thought I was, Emma wrote. My mom said I had a gift. We used to sing together all the time. But after the accident, I just could not anymore. Marcus understood. Trauma had a way of taking away the things that used to bring joy. He had not been able to help children with music therapy after Amy died, even though it had been his passion and his calling. Sometimes our voices get lost, Marcus wrote. But they are still there, waiting for us to find them again. Emma looked at Marcus with curiosity. There was something different about the way he wrote about voices and music. It was not like he was just being nice or trying to make her feel better. He wrote like someone who really understood these things. Were you a music teacher? Emma wrote. Marcus hesitated. He had not told anyone at Sterling Tech about his background. He was just the janitor to them, and that had been safe. But looking at Emma's hopeful face, he decided to tell her the truth. I was a music therapist, he wrote. I helped children heal through music. Before Amy died, Emma's eyes went even wider. A music therapist had been cleaning her father's office for 3 years, and no one knew. Someone who was trained to help people like her had been right there the whole time, invisible. Could you help me? Emma wrote. Marcus looked at the question for a long time. Could he help her? Did he still remember how to do music therapy? Did he still have the skills to help someone find their voice again? And more importantly, was he ready to risk his heart again by caring about someone? I could try, Marcus finally wrote. If you want me to. Emma nodded quickly. For the first time since the accident, she felt a tiny spark of hope. Maybe her voice was not gone forever. Maybe this kind janitor who understood her pain could help her find it again. Marcus looked at his watch. He still had hours of cleaning to do, and they had already been talking for 30 minutes. But this conversation felt more important than any work he had done in years. I have to finish cleaning, Marcus wrote. But tomorrow night, if you want to talk more, I will be here. Emma smiled, the first real smile Marcus had seen from her. She wrote, Thank you for seeing me. Marcus understood exactly what she meant. For 3 years, people had looked at Emma but not really seen her. They saw the CEO's mute daughter, the girl who could not speak, the victim of a tragedy. But Marcus saw Emma, a 16-year-old girl who was hurting and trying to find her way back to herself. As Marcus gathered his cleaning supplies and prepared to leave the office, Emma wrote one more note. What was Amy's favorite song? Marcus smiled sadly and wrote back, Hallelujah by Leonard Cohen. She sang it all the time. Emma nodded and watched as Marcus left the office. She sat alone again, but this time she did not feel quite so lonely. Someone finally understood her pain, and maybe, just maybe, someone could help her find her voice again. Marcus could not sleep the next day. He kept thinking about his conversation with Emma. For the first time in 2 years, he had used his knowledge of music therapy. It felt strange and familiar at the same time, like putting on an old coat that still fit perfectly. He spent the afternoon looking through his old textbooks and notes from his music therapy training. The books were dusty and had been packed away in boxes since Amy died. As Marcus read through his old lesson plans and case studies, he remembered how much he had loved this work. He had been good at it too. Children who had been hurt or traumatized often found healing through music when nothing else could reach them. But Emma was different from the children he used to work with. She was a teenager, and her trauma was deeper and more complex. Losing a parent was different from other kinds of hurt. Emma had not just lost her mother. She had lost her voice, her confidence, and her connection to the music she once loved. Marcus arrived at work that evening with a small harmonica in his pocket. It had belonged to Amy, and he had not touched it since she died. The harmonica was simple and cheap, nothing like the expensive instruments he used to have in his therapy office. But it still made beautiful music. When Marcus reached the executive floor, he looked toward Richard Sterling's office. Emma was there again, sitting in the same chair as the night before. But tonight she was not crying. She was waiting for him. Marcus knocked gently on the glass door and Emma waved him in. She had paper and pen ready on the desk, and Marcus could see she had been thinking about their conversation too. "I was hoping you would come back," Emma wrote as soon as Marcus sat down. "I brought something," Marcus wrote back. He pulled the small harmonica from his pocket and placed it on the desk between them. Emma looked at the instrument with curiosity. She picked it up carefully and examined it. The harmonica was old and worn, but it had been well cared for. "This was Amy's," Marcus wrote. "She loved to play it." Emma held the harmonica gently, understanding how special it must be to Marcus. She wrote, "Will you play something?" Marcus hesitated. He had not played any music since Amy died. But looking at Emma's hopeful face, he took the harmonica and put it to his lips. He played a simple, soft melody that Amy used to love. The notes floated through the quiet office like a gentle breeze. Emma listened with her eyes closed. The music was beautiful and sad at the same time. It reminded her of her mother and the songs they used to sing together. When Marcus finished playing, Emma opened her eyes with tears in them. "That was beautiful," she wrote. "Music has power," Marcus wrote back. "It can reach places inside us that words cannot touch." Emma nodded. She understood what he meant. Music had always moved her in ways that nothing else could. Before the accident, singing had been her favorite thing in the world. It was how she expressed her feelings and connected with her mother. "I miss singing," Emma wrote. "Sometimes I dream that I'm singing again, and when I wake up I remember that I cannot. What if I told you that you still can sing?" Marcus wrote. Emma shook her head and pointed to her throat. She wrote, "Nothing comes out. I try sometimes when I am alone, but no sound comes." Marcus had seen this before in his work with traumatized children. Emma's voice was not physically damaged. The doctors had confirmed that. Her voice was trapped by fear and pain. The accident had not just taken away her mother, it had taken away her confidence and her belief in herself. "Your voice is still there," Marcus wrote. "It is just hiding because it is scared." "How do you know?" Emma wrote. "Because I am a music therapist," Marcus wrote. "I have helped many people find their voices again. Not just children who could not speak, but people who forgot how to sing, how to express themselves, how to feel joy through music." Emma looked at Marcus with new respect. She had known he was smart and kind, but now she understood that he was also an expert in exactly the kind of help she needed. "Will you try something with me?" Marcus wrote. Emma nodded nervously. Marcus picked up the harmonica again and played a single, simple note. He held it long and steady, then stopped and looked at Emma. "Just try to hum that same note," he wrote. "Do not worry about making it perfect. Just try to match the sound." Emma shook her head. She was scared. What if she tried and nothing came out? What if she failed? "There is no wrong way to do this," Marcus wrote. "Whatever sound you make is the right sound." Emma took a deep breath and opened her mouth slightly. She tried to hum the note that Marcus had played. At first nothing happened. Then very quietly a small humming sound came from her throat. It was barely audible, but it was there. Emma's eyes went wide with shock. She had made a sound. It was not singing and it was not speaking, but it was more than she had done in 2 years. Marcus smiled and wrote, "That was perfect." Emma tried again, and this time the humming was a little louder and more confident. Marcus played another note on the harmonica, and Emma hummed along with him. They continued this exercise for several minutes, with Marcus playing simple melodies and Emma humming along. "How does it feel?" Marcus wrote during a break. "Scary," Emma wrote back, "but also good. I had forgotten what it felt like to make music." "Your voice is remembering," Marcus wrote. "It just needs practice and patience." They continued working together for another hour. Marcus showed Emma breathing exercises that would help strengthen her voice. He taught her how to relax her throat and jaw, which had been tense for 2 years. Slowly, Emma's humming became more natural and confident. "I want to ask you something," Marcus wrote. "Before the accident, what was your favorite song to sing?" Emma thought for a moment, then wrote, "Hallelujah" by Leonard Cohen. "My mom and I used to sing it together all the time. She said it was a song about finding beauty even when life is hard." Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. That was Amy's favorite song, too. It seemed like more than a coincidence that both Emma and his daughter had loved the same piece of music. "That is a beautiful song," Marcus wrote. "And your mother was right about what it means. I have not been able to listen to it since the accident," Emma wrote. "It makes me too sad." "Maybe someday we could work on that song together," Marcus wrote. "When you are ready." Emma looked both excited and terrified by the idea. Singing Hallelujah again would mean facing all her feelings about her mother, but it would also mean reconnecting with one of their most special shared memories. "Do you think I could really sing again?" Emma wrote. "Like I used to." "I think you can sing better than you used to," Marcus wrote, "because now you understand things about life and loss that you did not know before. That understanding can make your voice more powerful and meaningful." Emma had never thought about it that way. She had assumed that losing her mother had only taken things away from her. But Marcus was suggesting that her pain and healing could actually make her a stronger singer. "When I was little, I wanted to be a professional singer," Emma wrote. "I dreamed about performing on stage and making albums. Do you think that is still possible?" Marcus looked at Emma's hopeful face and remembered all the dreams that Amy had shared with him. His daughter had wanted to be a singer too. She had been so young when she died that she never got the chance to see if her dreams could come true. "I think anything is possible," Marcus wrote. "But first, we need to help you find your speaking voice again. Then we can work on your singing voice." Emma nodded. She understood that learning to sing again would be a long process. But for the first time since the accident, she believed it might actually be possible. "Why are you helping me?" Emma wrote. "You barely know me." Marcus thought about how to answer that question. The truth was complicated. He was helping Emma partly because he saw Amy in her. But he was also helping her because he needed to remember who he used to be. Working with Emma was helping Marcus heal too. "Because everyone deserves to have their voice heard," Marcus wrote. "And because helping you helps me remember why I became a music therapist in the first place." Emma smiled and wrote, "Thank you for not giving up on me. Thank you for trusting me." Marcus wrote back. As their session ended, Marcus felt something he had not felt in 2 years. He felt useful again. He felt like he had a purpose. Emma was not just the CEO's mute daughter anymore. She was his student and he was her teacher. Together, they were going to find her voice again. 3 weeks had passed since Marcus and Emma first started working together. Every night they met in Richard Sterling's office or in an empty conference room. Emma's progress was slow but steady. She could now hum complete melodies and had even managed to whisper a few words. Her voice was still weak and shaky, but it was definitely there. Marcus had been researching Emma's background during his free time. He learned that before the accident, Emma had been an exceptional singer. She had won several school competitions and had been planning to audition for a prestigious music program. The local newspaper had even written an article about her talent when she was 14. Reading about Emma's past achievements made Marcus even more determined to help her. This was not just about helping a sad girl find her voice. This was about helping a truly gifted young artist reclaim her future. One evening, Marcus arrived at work with an idea that had been forming in his mind for days. He had seen a notice on the company bulletin board about the annual Sterling Tech Charity Gala. The event was held every year to raise money for various causes, and employees were encouraged to volunteer their talents for entertainment. Marcus had never paid attention to the gala before. As a janitor, he was not invited to attend. But this year, the event gave him an idea that could change everything for both him and Emma. When Marcus reached the executive floor, he found Emma practicing her breathing exercises in her father's office. She had been working hard on the techniques he had taught her, and her progress was impressive. "Good evening," Marcus wrote as he sat down across from her. "Hi," Emma whispered back. It was still difficult for her to speak aloud, but she was trying harder every day. Marcus pulled out a folded piece of paper from his pocket. It was the announcement about the charity gala. He placed it on the desk in front of Emma. "I want to show you something," Marcus wrote. Emma read the announcement carefully. The gala was scheduled for the following month. It would be held in the company's main conference center, and all the top executives and their families would attend. There would be dinner, dancing, and entertainment provided by employees who wanted to showcase their talents. "Why are you showing me this?" Emma wrote. Marcus took a deep breath before writing his response. What he was about to propose would require enormous courage from both of them. "I think you should perform at the gala," Marcus wrote. Emma stared at the words on the paper for a long moment. Then she shook her head vigorously and wrote, "No, absolutely not. I cannot sing in front of people. I can barely whisper to you. But you are getting stronger every day," Marcus wrote. "By the time of the gala you will be ready." "Ready for what?" Emma wrote. "To embarrass myself in front of my father's colleagues? To fail in front of hundreds of people?" Marcus understood her fear. The idea of performing publicly after being mute for 2 years was terrifying. But he also knew that Emma needed a goal to work toward. Without a specific target, her progress might plateau. "What if I told you that performing at the gala could help other people like you?" Marcus wrote. Emma looked confused. She wrote, "What do you mean?" Marcus had been working on this idea for weeks. He had been researching and planning, remembering his old dreams of helping children through music therapy. The gala could be the perfect opportunity to present his vision. "I want to propose a new program to your father's company," Marcus wrote. "A music therapy program for children who have been through trauma. Children who have lost parents, who have been in accidents, who cannot speak or express their feelings." Emma read his words with growing interest. She wrote, "You want to start a music therapy program here?" "Not just here," Marcus wrote. "I want Sterling Tech to fund a music therapy center that could help hundreds of children. But I need to prove that music therapy works. I need to show them what it can do." Emma began to understand where Marcus was going with this idea. She wrote, "You want me to be the proof. You would be the perfect example," Marcus wrote. "A young person who lost her voice due to trauma and found it again through music therapy. If you could perform at the gala and tell your story, it would show everyone how powerful this kind of healing can be." Emma felt both excited and terrified by the idea. She wrote, "But what if I fail? What if my voice breaks or I cannot sing at all?" "Then we will deal with that when it happens," Marcus wrote. "But I do not think you will fail. I think you are braver and stronger than you know." Emma thought about all the children who might be helped by a music therapy program. She remembered how alone and hopeless she had felt before Marcus started working with her. If her story could help other young people avoid that kind of suffering, maybe it would be worth the risk. "What song would I sing?" Emma wrote. Marcus smiled. He had been hoping she would ask that question. "Hallelujah," Marcus wrote. "The song you and your mother used to sing together. The song that means the most to you." Emma's hands started shaking as she read his suggestion. She wrote, "I have not even listened to that song since the accident. I do not know if I can sing it. We have a month to work on it," Marcus wrote. "We can take it as slowly as you need. If you are not ready by the gala, we will find a different song, but I think Hallelujah is the perfect choice." "Why?" Emma wrote. "Because it is a song about finding light in darkness," Marcus wrote. "It is about surviving pain and still being able to find beauty in life. That is exactly what you have been doing." Emma sat quietly for several minutes thinking about Marcus's proposal. The idea of singing Hallelujah in front of hundreds of people was almost too scary to imagine. But she also knew that her mother would have wanted her to use her voice to help others. "If I do this," Emma wrote, "my father will find out about our meetings. He will want to know why you have been helping me." Marcus nodded. He had thought about this too. Richard Sterling did not even know that Marcus had a background in music therapy. As far as the CEO knew, Marcus was just a janitor who cleaned the offices. I will have to tell him the truth about who I am, Marcus wrote. I will have to explain why I've been working with you and what I hope to accomplish. Will you get in trouble? Emma wrote. Will you lose your job? Maybe, Marcus wrote honestly. But some things are more important than keeping a job. Helping you find your voice again is more important. Starting a program that could help other children is more important. Emma felt tears starting to form in her eyes. No one had ever risked anything for her before. Her father loved her, but he was always careful and safe in his decisions. Marcus was willing to risk his job, his income, and his security just to help her heal. I am scared, Emma wrote. I am scared too, Marcus wrote back. But being scared does not mean we should not try. Some of the most important things in life require us to be brave even when we are afraid. Emma thought about her mother, and how proud she would be if Emma could use her voice to help other children. She thought about all the young people who might be sitting alone somewhere, feeling hopeless and voiceless like she had been. If I agree to do this, Emma wrote, you have to promise me something. What? Marcus wrote, you have to promise that no matter what happens, you will not give up on the music therapy program. Even if I fail at the gala, even if people think it is a bad idea, you have to keep trying to help other children. Marcus felt his heart swell with pride. Emma was not just thinking about herself anymore. She was thinking about all the other young people who needed help. That was the sign of a true healer. I promise, Marcus wrote. But you have to promise me something too. What? Emma wrote, promise me that you will not give up on yourself. Promise me that even if you get scared or feel like quitting, you will remember how strong you are and how much your voice matters. Emma looked at Marcus for a long moment. This kind, gentle man had already given her so much. He had seen her when she felt invisible. He had believed in her when she had lost faith in herself. He had shown her that her voice was still there, waiting to be found. I promise, Emma wrote. Marcus smiled and wrote, then we have a deal. 1 month from today, you are going to sing Hallelujah at the Sterling Tech Charity Gala, and after that performance, everything is going to change. Emma felt a mixture of excitement and terror, but for the first time in 2 years, she also felt hope. She was going to sing again. She was going to honor her mother's memory, and she was going to help Marcus create something that could heal other broken hearts. When do we start practicing the song? Emma wrote, right now, Marcus wrote back. He pulled out Amy's harmonica and played the opening notes of Hallelujah. The melody filled the quiet office, and Emma closed her eyes to listen. Tomorrow, they would begin the hardest part of her journey. But tonight, sitting in that office with Marcus playing her mother's favorite song, Emma felt like she was finally coming home to herself. The next 3 weeks were the most challenging and rewarding of Marcus's life since Amy died. Every night, he and Emma worked together in secret, slowly building her voice back to strength. They used an empty conference room on the 15th floor, far away from the executive offices where someone might overhear them. Marcus had created a detailed plan for Emma's vocal rehabilitation. They started each session with breathing exercises to help her relax and prepare her body for singing. Then they did gentle vocal warm-ups, starting with humming and gradually progressing to whispered words and short phrases. The hardest part was working on Hallelujah itself. The first time Marcus played the melody on his harmonica, Emma broke down crying. The song brought back so many memories of her mother that she could not handle the emotion, but Marcus was patient and understanding. He had expected this reaction. Healing is not a straight line, Marcus wrote to Emma during one of their more difficult sessions. Sometimes we have to go through the pain to get to the other side. Emma struggled with the lyrics of the song. Each verse reminded her of different moments with her mother. The words about love and loss and finding faith despite suffering hit too close to home. But Marcus helped her understand that this was exactly why the song was perfect for her story. You are not just singing a song, Marcus explained. You are telling your story. You are sharing your journey from silence to voice, from despair to hope. Slowly, Emma began to see the song differently. Instead of just a painful reminder of what she had lost, it became a way to honor her mother's memory and share her own strength with others. Marcus also worked on his own preparation during this time. He had been secretly taking online business courses for months, learning how to write grant proposals and business plans. He wanted to be ready to present his music therapy program professionally when the time came. Every morning after his night shift, Marcus would go to the public library and work on his presentation, He researched other successful music therapy programs around the country. He calculated costs and projected outcomes. He created charts and graphs showing how many children could be helped and what the impact would be. Marcus also reached out to his old colleagues from the music therapy field. Many of them were surprised to hear from him after so many years of silence. They were shocked to learn that he had been working as a janitor, but they were excited about his new project. Several offered to help with the program if Sterling Tech decided to fund it. Meanwhile, Emma was facing her own challenges at home. Her father had noticed that she seemed happier and more energetic lately. Richard Sterling was pleased to see his daughter improving, but he was also curious about what had changed. Emma had to be careful not to reveal her secret meetings with Marcus. "You seem different lately," Richard Sterling said to Emma one evening at dinner. "More like your old self," Emma wrote on her notepad. "I have been thinking about Mom a lot. Good memories instead of just sad ones." This was not entirely a lie. Working with Marcus had helped Emma process her grief in healthier ways. But she was not ready to tell her father about the music therapy or the planned performance. Richard Sterling smiled sadly at his daughter's note. "Your mother would be proud of how strong you have become," he said. Emma wished she could tell her father that she was planning to sing again. She knew he would be amazed and proud, but she and Marcus had agreed to keep their work secret until the night of the gala. They wanted the performance to be a complete surprise. As the weeks passed, Emma's voice grew stronger and more confident. She could now sing entire verses of Hallelujah without her voice breaking or becoming too quiet to hear. The emotion was still overwhelming at times, but she was learning to channel those feelings into the music instead of being paralyzed by them. Marcus was amazed by Emma's progress. Her natural talent was becoming obvious as her voice healed. She had excellent pitch and timing, and she understood how to convey emotion through song. With proper training and support, she could definitely become a professional singer if she wanted to. But Marcus was also working on something else during these weeks. He was trying to deal with his own grief about Amy. Helping Emma had brought back memories of his daughter that were both painful and healing. He realized that he had been running away from music therapy not just because it reminded him of Amy, but because he felt guilty about not being able to save her. "I should have been a better father," Marcus wrote in his journal one morning. "I should have protected her." But working with Emma was helping Marcus understand that some tragedies cannot be prevented. Amy's death was not his fault, just like Emma's mother's death was not Emma's fault. They were both victims of random, terrible accidents that no one could have stopped. 2 weeks before the gala, Marcus made an important decision. He bought a simple black suit from a thrift store and had it tailored to fit him properly. He also bought new shoes and got his hair cut professionally. If he was going to present his music therapy program to Richard Sterling and the other executives, he wanted to look like someone they would take seriously. Emma noticed the changes in Marcus's appearance and asked him about it. "I want to honor this opportunity," Marcus wrote, "and I want to honor you. What we are doing is important, and I want everyone to see that." Emma was touched by Marcus's effort to present himself professionally. She realized that this project meant as much to him as it did to her. They were both trying to rebuild their lives and find new purpose after terrible losses. The hardest part of their preparation was deciding exactly how Emma would tell her story at the gala. Marcus wanted her to speak briefly before singing, to explain what the song meant to her and how music therapy had helped her heal. "I do not know if I can speak in front of all those people," Emma wrote. "What if my voice is too quiet? What if I get too nervous?" "We will practice that too," Marcus wrote. "And if you cannot speak on the night of the gala, I will tell your story for you. The important thing is that people understand what you have been through and how far you have come." They practiced Emma's speech over and over until she could deliver it clearly and confidently. She explained how the accident had taken away her voice, how Marcus had helped her find it again, and why she wanted to help other children who were dealing with trauma. "Music therapy saved my life," Emma practiced saying. "It gave me back my voice and my hope. Now I want to help other young people find their voices too." Marcus was proud of how articulate and passionate Emma sounded when she talked about the program. She was not just a patient anymore. She was becoming an advocate for other children who needed help. 1 week before the gala, Marcus and Emma had their final full rehearsal. Emma sang Hallelujah from beginning to end without stopping. Her voice was clear and strong, and the emotion in her performance was powerful but controlled. Marcus accompanied her on piano, a skill he had not revealed to anyone at Sterling Tech. When the song ended, both Marcus and Emma had tears in their eyes. They had done it. They had taken a traumatized, voiceless girl and helped her become a confident young woman who was ready to share her story with the world. "Are you ready?" Marcus wrote. "I am terrified," Emma wrote back. "But I am also excited. I want people to hear what we have learned together." "Your mother would be so proud," Marcus wrote. "Amy would be proud too," Emma wrote back. Marcus smiled. Over the weeks of working together, Emma had learned about Amy's dreams and personality. In some ways, Emma was carrying on Amy's dream of using music to help people. That thought gave Marcus more comfort than he had felt in 2 years. The night before the gala, Marcus did not clean any offices. Instead, he spent the evening preparing his presentation materials and making sure everything was perfect. Tomorrow night, he would stop being an invisible janitor and reveal who he really was. Tomorrow night, Emma would find her voice in front of hundreds of people. Tomorrow night, everything would change. Marcus looked at himself in the mirror of the men's restroom on the executive floor. He was wearing his new suit and looked like a completely different person. But inside, he felt like himself again for the first time since Amy died. He was a music therapist. He was someone who helped people heal. He was someone who made a difference in the world. Tomorrow night, he would prove it. The night of the Sterling Tech Charity Gala arrived with all the grandeur that Richard Sterling's events were known for. The company's main conference center had been transformed into an elegant ballroom. Crystal chandeliers hung from the ceiling, casting warm light over tables covered with white silk and decorated with expensive flower arrangements. The most important business leaders in the city were in attendance, along with their families. Everyone was dressed in their finest formal wear. The men wore expensive tuxedos and the women wore designer gowns that cost more than Marcus made in several months. This was the kind of event where major business deals were discussed over champagne and dessert. Marcus arrived 3 hours early, using his janitor's keycard to enter the building. He needed time to set up the piano and prepare his presentation materials. His hands were shaking as he arranged his papers and checked the microphone system. After 3 years of being invisible, he was about to step into the spotlight in front of the most powerful people in the city. Emma had spent the day at home, trying to calm her nerves. She had practiced her speech and her song dozens of times, but she was still terrified. Her father had noticed that she seemed anxious about the gala, but he assumed she was just nervous about being around so many people. He had no idea that his daughter was planning to perform. Richard Sterling was excited about the gala. It was one of his favorite events of the year because it combined business networking with charitable giving. This year, the event was raising money for 3 different causes: a children's hospital, a scholarship fund for underprivileged students, and a program for elderly care. He expected to raise over $1 million for these worthy causes. As the guests began to arrive, Marcus watched from behind the stage curtain. He could see all the people he had observed from a distance for 3 years. There was the head of marketing who always stayed late and drank too much coffee. There was the chief financial officer who was always stressed about budgets. There were board members and investors and their wives and children, but Marcus was looking for one person in particular. When Richard Sterling entered the ballroom with Emma by his side, Marcus felt his heart race. Emma looked beautiful in a long blue dress that matched her eyes, but Marcus could see the nervous tension in her posture. She was trying to appear calm, but she was clearly scared about what was to come. Richard Sterling had no idea that his daughter was about to shock everyone in the room. He was proud to have Emma with him at the gala, but he was also sad that she could not participate more fully in the evening's festivities. He wished she could speak to his colleagues and share her thoughts about the charitable causes they were supporting. The first part of the evening went according to plan. Guests enjoyed a 5-course dinner prepared by the city's best catering company. There were speeches about the importance of charitable giving and presentations about the organizations that would benefit from the funds raised. Several employees performed musical numbers or comedy routines to entertain the crowd. Marcus watched it all from backstage, growing more nervous with each passing hour. He had been scheduled to speak near the end of the evening, just before the final fundraising appeal. The timing was perfect because people would be in a generous mood, but it also meant that Marcus had to wait through hours of anxiety before his moment arrived. Emma sat at her father's table, barely touching her food. She kept looking toward the stage, knowing that Marcus was back there preparing. Her father introduced her to several business associates throughout the evening, and she communicated with them through writing and sign language. Everyone was polite and kind, but Emma could see the pity in their eyes. They saw her as the poor girl who could not speak, not as someone who might have something important to say. As the evening progressed, Richard Sterling began to wonder about the program. He noticed that there was one presentation listed that he did not recognize. Someone named Marcus Johnson was scheduled to speak about music therapy and healing. Richard could not remember approving this addition to the program, and the name was not familiar to him. "Do you know anything about this Marcus Johnson?" Richard asked his assistant. "I am not sure, sir," the assistant replied. "I think he might be one of the night shift employees. I can check on it if you would like." Richard decided not to worry about it. The event coordinator had assured him that all the presentations would be appropriate and inspiring. Besides, music therapy sounded like the kind of program that would fit well with the evening's charitable theme. Finally, the moment arrived. The event coordinator stepped up to the microphone and announced the next presentation. "Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Marcus Johnson, who will speak to us about the healing power of music therapy." Richard Sterling looked around the room with confusion. He still did not recognize the name, and he was curious to see who this Marcus Johnson was. Emma felt her heart pounding so hard she was sure everyone could hear it. This was it, the moment she and Marcus had been preparing for. She watched as a man in a black suit walked onto the stage. It took her a moment to recognize him because she had never seen Marcus dressed so professionally. He looked confident and dignified, nothing like the quiet janitor who cleaned the offices at night. The audience was politely attentive but not particularly excited. They assumed this would be another routine presentation about a worthy cause. They had no idea they were about to witness something extraordinary. Marcus stepped up to the microphone and looked out at the crowd. For a moment he felt overwhelmed by the sea of faces staring back at him. These people had more money and power than he had ever dreamed of having. But then he saw Emma sitting at her father's table, giving him an encouraging smile. He remembered why he was there and what he was trying to accomplish. "Good evening," Marcus began. "My name is Marcus Johnson, and for the past 3 years I have been working here at Sterling Tech as a night janitor." A murmur went through the crowd. People looked around at each other with surprise. A janitor was speaking at their elegant gala. Richard Sterling felt confused and slightly embarrassed. How had this happened? "But before I became a janitor," Marcus continued, "I was a licensed music therapist with a master's degree in therapeutic music. I worked with children who had been through trauma, helping them heal through the power of music." The audience became more interested. This was not what they had expected from a janitor. 3 years ago, I lost my 8-year-old daughter Amy in a car accident. The grief was so overwhelming that I could no longer do the work I loved. I ended up here cleaning your offices at night, invisible to most of you. Marcus could see that he had the audience's full attention now. People were leaning forward in their chairs, listening carefully to his story. "But working here taught me something important. Trauma and loss happen to people from all walks of life, rich and poor, young and old. We all experience pain that can leave us feeling voiceless and alone." Marcus looked directly at Emma, who was sitting frozen in her chair. Richard Sterling noticed the exchange and began to feel that something significant was happening. "Tonight, I want to propose that Sterling Tech fund a music therapy program for children who have experienced trauma. Not because it is a nice thing to do, but because it works. Because music has the power to reach places in the human heart that medicine and counseling cannot touch." The audience was listening intently now. Several people were nodding in agreement. "I know this program works because I have seen it heal someone right here in this room, someone who lost her voice due to trauma and found it again through music therapy." Marcus paused and looked at Emma again. She knew it was time. Her moment had arrived. "Ladies and gentlemen, I would like you to hear from someone who can tell you firsthand about the power of music to heal. Please welcome Miss Emma Sterling." The gasp that went through the room was audible. Richard Sterling's mouth fell open in shock. His daughter was going to speak. How was that possible? Emma stood up slowly and walked toward the stage. Her legs felt weak and her hands were shaking, but she kept moving forward. Every eye in the room was on her. People who had known her for years watched in amazement as the girl they thought was mute approached the microphone. Marcus met Emma at the side of the stage and handed her the microphone. He gave her an encouraging nod and whispered, "You can do this. I believe in you." Emma took the microphone and walked to the center of the stage. She looked out at the crowd and saw her father staring at her with tears in his eyes. She saw the faces of people who had known her since she was a child, all watching with wonder and anticipation. Emma took a deep breath and began to speak. Emma's voice was soft at first, barely audible in the large ballroom, but as she spoke, her confidence grew stronger with each word. 2 years ago, I lost my voice, Emma began, not because there was anything wrong with my throat or my vocal cords, but because the pain of losing my mother was so great that I could not bear to make a sound. The room was completely silent. Every person was hanging on Emma's words, amazed to hear Richard Sterling's daughter speaking after years of silence. I blamed myself for the accident, Emma continued, her voice growing clearer. I thought that if I had not asked my mother to pick me up from school that day, she would still be alive. I thought that if I stayed quiet, maybe I could disappear from the pain. Richard Sterling was crying openly now. He had never known that his daughter blamed herself for the accident. He had been so lost in his own grief that he had not realized how much Emma was suffering. For 2 years I lived in silence, Emma said. I watched the world around me but felt like I was trapped behind glass. I could see people talking and laughing, but I could not join them. I felt completely alone even when I was surrounded by people who loved me. Emma looked at her father across the room. I know my father tried to help me. He took me to doctors and therapists. He bought me anything I wanted, but nothing could reach the place inside me where my voice was hiding. The audience was completely captivated. Many people were wiping away tears as they listened to Emma's honest and heartbreaking story. 3 weeks ago, Marcus found me crying alone in my father's office. He was just doing his job, cleaning the building. But instead of walking away, he stopped and talked to me. He was the first person in 2 years who really saw me, not as the CEO's mute daughter, but as a person who was hurting and needed help. Emma turned to look at Marcus, who was standing at the side of the stage. Marcus used his knowledge of music therapy to help me find my voice again. Not just my speaking voice, but my singing voice too, the voice that I thought was gone forever. A murmur of amazement went through the crowd. People could hardly believe what they were hearing. Before the accident, singing was my favorite thing in the world. My mother and I used to sing together all the time. We had a special song that we loved, a song that my mother said was about finding beauty even in the midst of pain. Emma's voice began to shake with emotion, but she continued speaking. I have not been able to listen to that song since my mother died. It was too painful. But Marcus helped me understand that avoiding the pain was not healing me. He taught me that sometimes we have to go through our grief to get to the other side of it. The audience was completely silent, afraid to even breathe loudly for fear of interrupting Emma's powerful testimony. Tonight, I want to sing that song for my mother, for all the children who have lost their voices due to trauma, and for everyone who has ever felt alone in their pain. I want to show you what music therapy can do. I want to prove that healing is possible, even when it seems impossible. Emma looked at Marcus, who nodded encouragingly. He walked to the piano that had been set up on the stage and sat down at the bench. His fingers found the keys and he began to play the opening chords of Hallelujah. The melody filled the ballroom like a gentle prayer. Everyone recognized the song, but they had never heard it played with such tenderness and meaning. Marcus played with the skill of a professional musician, something no one in the audience had expected from a janitor. Emma closed her eyes and listened to the music for a moment. She thought about her mother and all the times they had sung this song together. She thought about Amy, Marcus's daughter, who had also loved this song. She thought about all the children who were sitting somewhere in silence, waiting for someone to help them find their voice. When Emma opened her mouth and began to sing, her voice was like nothing anyone in that room had ever heard. I've heard there was a secret chord that David played, and it pleased the Lord. Emma's voice was pure and clear, filled with emotion but controlled and confident. She sang with the maturity of someone who had experienced real loss and real healing. The pain in her voice was balanced by hope and strength. As she continued singing, the entire ballroom was transfixed. Business executives who dealt with numbers and profits all day were moved to tears by the raw beauty of Emma's performance. Their wives and children sat in amazement, watching this young woman transform before their eyes. Richard Sterling could barely see through his tears. He was watching his daughter not just sing but soar. This was not the broken girl who had been living in his house for 2 years. This was a strong, confident young woman who was using her pain to create something beautiful. And even though it all went wrong, I'll stand before the Lord of Song with nothing on my tongue but hallelujah. Emma's voice grew stronger with each verse. She was not just singing the words, she was living them. Every line of the song reflected her journey from despair to hope, from silence to voice, from isolation to connection. Marcus played with tears streaming down his face. He was thinking about Amy and how proud she would be to see Emma performing. He was also thinking about all the children they could help if the program was approved. This performance was not just about Emma's healing. It was about opening doors for countless other young people. As Emma reached the final verse, her voice filled every corner of the ballroom. There was not a dry eye in the room. People who had known Emma since she was a little girl were amazed by the transformation they were witnessing. I did my best. It wasn't much. I couldn't feel, so I tried to touch. I've told the truth, I didn't come to fool you. And even though it all went wrong, I'll stand before the Lord of Song with nothing on my tongue but hallelujah. When the last note faded away, the ballroom was completely silent for several seconds. It was as if everyone needed a moment to process what they had just experienced. Then slowly someone began to clap. Others joined in, and within moments the entire room erupted in thunderous applause. People were not just clapping, they were cheering and wiping away tears. Several people stood up and soon the entire ballroom was giving Emma a standing ovation that lasted for several minutes. Emma stood at the microphone, overwhelmed by the response. She had done it. She had sung in front of hundreds of people and shared her story. She had honored her mother's memory and proven that healing was possible. Richard Sterling was the first to reach the stage. He ran to his daughter and wrapped her in the biggest hug they had shared since before the accident. Both of them were crying and laughing at the same time. I am so proud of you, Richard whispered to Emma. Your mother would be so proud too. I love you, Dad. Emma whispered back. They were the first words she had spoken directly to her father in 2 years. Marcus was surrounded by people wanting to shake his hand and learn more about his background. But all he could focus on was the sight of Emma and her father reuniting. That moment made everything worthwhile. Ladies and gentlemen, the event coordinator announced over the microphone, I think we have just witnessed something extraordinary. Marcus Johnson and Emma Sterling have shown us the incredible power of music therapy to heal and restore. The applause started again, even louder than before. Now, the coordinator continued, let's see if we can fund this amazing program that Marcus has proposed. Who wants to help bring music therapy to children who need it? What happened next exceeded everyone's expectations. The donations came pouring in faster than anyone could count them. People were writing checks and pledging amounts that were far beyond what anyone had hoped for. By the end of the evening, they had raised enough money to fund the music therapy program for 5 years. But more importantly, Emma had found her voice again. Not just her singing voice, but her confidence, her hope, and her connection to her father. The girl who had been silent for 2 years was now the star of the evening, talking and laughing with people who had not heard her speak since she was 14. As the evening wound down, Richard Sterling approached Marcus with an expression of gratitude and amazement. Marcus, Richard said, I owe you an apology. I had no idea who you were or what you were capable of. You have given me back my daughter, and I can never thank you enough. Marcus smiled and shook Richard's hand. Emma did all the hard work, Marcus said. I just reminded her that her voice was still there. I want you to know that your program is approved, Richard continued. But more than that, I want to offer you a position as Director of Employee Wellness for Sterling Tech, with a salary that reflects your education and experience. Marcus was speechless. 3 weeks ago, he had been an invisible janitor. Tonight, he was being offered his dream job by one of the most powerful men in the city. There is one condition, Richard added with a smile. You have to promise me that you will continue working with Emma. She is going to need continued support as she continues her healing journey. Marcus looked at Emma, who was surrounded by people congratulating her on her performance. She caught his eye and smiled, signing thank you in the way that had become their special connection. It would be my honor, Marcus replied. 6 months after the charity gala, The Sterling Foundation Music Therapy Center opened its doors for the first time. The building was not fancy or expensive, but it was filled with warmth and hope. Bright colors covered the walls, and each room was designed to make children feel safe and welcome. Marcus stood in the main therapy room, watching as a 7-year-old boy named Tyler played the drums for the first time since his father died in military service. Tyler had not spoken to anyone in 3 months, but the rhythm of the drums was helping him express feelings that words could not capture. "Good job, Tyler," Marcus said gently. "The drums are telling your story." Tyler looked up at Marcus and smiled slightly. It was the first smile his mother had seen from him in weeks. In another room, Emma was working with a group of teenage girls who had experienced various traumas. Emma had become one of the center's volunteer coordinators, using her own story to connect with young people who felt voiceless and alone. "I know it feels impossible right now," Emma told a 15-year-old girl named Sarah, who had not spoken since being in a severe car accident. "I felt the same way, but your voice is still there, waiting for you to find it again." Sarah nodded and tried to hum along with the simple melody Emma was playing on the guitar. It was barely audible, but it was a start. The transformation in Emma's life had been remarkable. Not only had she regained her voice, but she had discovered a passion for helping others heal. She was still in high school, but she spent every free afternoon at the music therapy center. She had also started taking voice lessons again, and was planning to audition for music programs at several colleges. Richard Sterling was a completely different father than he had been before the gala. The shock of almost losing his daughter emotionally had made him realize how much time he had wasted being distant and unavailable. Now he made sure to have dinner with Emma every night and to really listen when she talked about her day. "I never want to take your voice for granted again," Richard had told Emma the week after the gala. "I want to hear every thought, every dream, every worry you have." Their relationship was stronger now than it had ever been, even before the accident. They had learned to talk about their grief instead of hiding from it. They visited Emma's mother's grave together every month and told her about their lives and their healing. The music therapy program had exceeded everyone's expectations. In its first 6 months, the center had helped over 200 children and teenagers. Some came for individual therapy sessions, while others participated in group programs. The results were documented and studied by researchers from 3 different universities. Marcus had hired a team of 5 other music therapists to work at the center. Each of them brought different skills and specialties, allowing the program to help children with a wide variety of needs. There were therapists who specialized in autism, trauma, depression, and grief counseling. But Marcus's favorite part of the program was the monthly concerts where the children could perform for their families and friends. These events were not about showing off talent or competing for prizes. They were about celebrating progress and giving young people a chance to share their voices with the world. At the first concert, Tyler played a drum solo dedicated to his father's memory. His mother cried tears of joy as she watched her son express his love and grief through music. Sarah sang a simple song about hope, and her parents hugged each other as they heard their daughter's voice for the first time in months. Emma performed at every concert, not as the star, but as an example of what was possible. She wanted every child in the program to see that healing was real, and that they could find their voices again. Marcus often thought about Amy during these concerts. He wished she could see what had grown from his decision to help Emma. His daughter's love of music was living on through all the children who were learning to heal through song. The program had also attracted attention from other cities and organizations. Marcus received calls every week from people who wanted to start similar programs in their communities. He was working on a training manual that would help other music therapists replicate their success. 3 months after the center opened, Marcus received a letter that made him cry happy tears. It was from a woman in California whose 8-year-old daughter had been helped by a music therapist who had been inspired by Emma's story at the gala. Someone had recorded Emma's performance and shared it online, and it had been viewed by millions of people around the world. "Your students' courage gave my daughter hope," the letter read. She watched Emma sing Hallelujah over and over, and it convinced her that she could find her voice too. "Today my daughter spoke her first words in 6 months. Thank you for showing us that healing is possible." Marcus showed the letter to Emma, who was amazed that her story was helping children she had never met. "This is what your mother would have wanted," Marcus told Emma. She would have wanted your voice to bring healing to others. Emma nodded, understanding that her mother's death had somehow become a source of life for other people. It did not make the loss hurt any less, but it gave the pain a purpose. Richard Sterling had become one of the biggest advocates for music therapy in the business community. He spoke at conferences and charity events, sharing Emma's story and encouraging other companies to invest in healing programs for children. The Sterling Foundation had committed to funding music therapy centers in 5 other cities over the next 3 years. Healing is not just good for individuals, Richard would tell business audiences. It is good for communities and families and society as a whole. When we help children recover from trauma, we are investing in a better future for everyone. 1 year after the gala, Marcus was asked to speak at a national conference on music therapy. He stood at the podium in front of hundreds of therapists and researchers from around the world, remembering the night when he had been just a janitor with a crazy idea. "The most important thing I have learned," Marcus told the audience, "is that healing happens through connection. Emma did not get better because I was a skilled therapist. She got better because someone finally saw her pain and refused to look away." In the audience, Emma sat with her father, proud to see Marcus sharing their story with people who could help other children. She was planning to major in music therapy in college and hoped to work alongside Marcus for many years to come. After the conference, Marcus and Emma visited Amy's grave together. It had become a tradition for them to go there on important occasions and tell Amy about their work. "I think Amy would have liked you," Marcus told Emma as they placed flowers on the small headstone. "I think I would have liked her too," Emma replied. "Maybe she is watching over all the children we help." Marcus smiled and put his arm around Emma's shoulders. "I think you are right. I think she is helping us reach every child who needs to find their voice." As they walked away from the cemetery, Emma began to hum Hallelujah softly. Marcus joined in, and their voices blended together in harmony. It was a song of loss and healing, of pain and hope, of silence and the amazing power of finding your voice again. Behind them, a gentle breeze moved through the trees, almost like a whisper of approval from 2 mothers who would have been proud to see how their children's voices were bringing healing to the world. The invisible janitor was invisible no more. The silent girl had found her song, and together, they were changing lives one voice at a time.